Howdy, and welcome to Let's Talk Texas, the official podcast of the Texas House Republican Caucus. I'm your host, Jordan Overturf, and today my guest is Jordan Watt, our executive director of the caucus. It's deadline night here, and we've got a late night going to the midnight deadline for House bills to get passed. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way. We had a great conversation about what's happening right now today, what's coming up, what we've done this session so far, all the great victories we've seen from the Texas House on issues like healthcare, education, broadband expansion, as well as Second Amendment passing permitless carry. The Heartbeat Act is heading to the governor's desk after the Senate concurred today. So lots of stuff happening down here in the Capitol, and we're trying to keep you informed and updated. And I'll make sure and give you some tips on where to find out more about all this stuff. Right now, let's talk Texas.
You have way more practice with this at this point.
Yeah.
You've interviewed how many members?
We've done 12 episodes, so
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I've done 9, so you're far ahead of me.
But you've been talking about this stuff for a lot longer than I have, and you've been in the building longer than I have. So, which I think is a nice starting point for those who don't know. Miss Jordan Watt, executive director of the Texas House Republican Caucus. How long have you been executive director?
3.5 years now.
And how long have you been in this wonderful building that we continue to torture ourselves with?
Too long. I have been in the building for about 7 years. Before that, I worked on a couple of campaigns.
So you Texas politics, you know this world pretty well by now at this point.
I mean, every once in a while they throw something random at me, but
I feel like a lot of random stuff has been thrown at us this session.
Yes,
right?
yes, definitely.
So it's deadline night. We're recording this while they're on a point of order or something. We're on break number, I don't even know. They should start keeping a record of those in the journal. I think.
Right.
But I guess, so the whole point of this whole podcast is to talk about where we are in session, give people an update on what's happening in the House, what it means for our members. So it's deadline night. What does that actually mean for those who, haven't been in the building and torturing themselves for a few sessions now?
Yeah, so tonight's the night that House bills have to pass out of the House in order to survive and eventually make their way to the governor's desk. So right now we have a calendar that's about 25 pages long, and I believe we're sitting on page 5 currently.
Oh, so it's a quick sprint. Yeah. And that House bill designation is key because we still have time to consider Senate bills, right?
That's right. Not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday is the deadline for those to pass out of the House.
Which I feel like this brings up a great point on kind of giving a quick explanation of the process from the House side of things, right? So we're trying to get House bills read on second reading by midnight tonight, midnight Friday. Mm-hmm. So for those bills, that means at this point they've already gone through what processes?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, they had to be filed within the first 60 days of the legislative session. Beyond that, they had to go through the process of a committee hearing the bill and seeking testimony from the general public on that bill. It's voted out of committee, and then it goes to the calendars committee where they set it on a calendar. And that's kind of the point where they wind up debating on the floor of the House, that bill.
And so there's also 2 calendars, right? We're not so much focused on the local and consent calendar right now. I think we have a few more days before that deadline, right?
We do. We actually have one tomorrow morning, in fact, and that deadline isn't until next week.
Yeah. So right now it really is just the focus on House bills being set on the general calendar. But so far at this point, we've already passed a lot of major legislation from the House side at this point. I mean, have you been able to keep track with everything? And for you, like, what are some of the top bills that you're surprised or thrilled at this point that we've been able to get out of the House.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've stayed very busy over the past 120 days of session, roughly, that we have been here. And so, first and foremost, we passed a considerable bill package in response to Winter Storm Uri. That was definitely something at the top of people's minds after February came and went. And then I think also, we've talked about COVID. I mean, we have been living in a pandemic over the past year. A lot of the members have filed bills to address some of the issues that popped up during that time, including like the closing of religious services and houses of worship. Several municipalities shut down ammunition and firearm sellers and things like that. So we've passed some bills to provide for opportunities for them to remain open in the event that a future pandemic occurs. We've also created a blueprint on how to respond in the event we wind up in that scenario at a state level. And so those are two big pieces that have been very responsive to the current events that are taking place. But we've also had a number of conservative victories. Last week, we passed significant bills on the pro-life front, on Second Amendment. We have passed a balanced budget out of the House as well. Let's not forget that. As the ninth largest economy in the world, I mean, we have a pretty heavy lift whenever we're crafting a budget. And so that actually started over in the Senate. This session, it was a Senate bill. And so that's currently sitting in a conference committee. So we had our own debate. We passed our own version of the House's Senate bill. And so they're kind of debating and negotiating the differences between the two versions at this time.
Which brings us to the next portion of the how a bill gets passed in the Texas legislature conversation. Conference committee, no conference committee. Can you talk a bit about that process?
Yeah. So, and I think for a lot of grassroots activists who may be listening or watching this, they recently heard about, like House Bill 1927. That was the permitless carry bill that we passed out of the House a few weeks ago. The Senate had some changes that they made on the Senate floor during their debate. And so ultimately what the House decided to do was they decided to go to a conference committee where they're going to negotiate the differences. In the event that a bill is agreed upon by the other chamber, they can simply concur with the amendments and those changes made. We saw that today with Senate Bill 8, the heartbeat bill, which is now on the way to the governor's desk after the Senate concurred with the amendments that we made over here in the House last week.
Which, in looking at the process, is kind of the next step as we talk about what's happening with these House bills that are on deadline, because obviously they have to get out by midnight tonight, have a third reading tomorrow. Then they go over to the Senate. And so after it goes through the process in the Senate, this whole concurrence conference committee part is where we're talking about those bills coming back. And we're at, 19 days left in the session, I believe.
We're basically there, yeah.
Right around there. It's hard to keep track on how many days or what day it is, especially when you don't actually work off a normal calendar.
That's right. Yeah. When we're still sitting on the calendar set for Tuesday of this week.
Yes, it's Thursday, but we're on Tuesday, and even the House can, play funny games with time in terms of what day they're legislative day they're on the floor.
I call it the session time warp because, you're spending so many hours in this building, too. Last night I was here till 1 a.m.
Yep.
A lot of staffers were continuing to work as our bosses were on the floor. And we've gone through many, many nights like that at this point. And so it all kind of becomes a blur.
Yeah, well, and putting together, all these roundups of the stuff we've passed out of the House and have been pushing out on our social media and our website today, I started to feel like Matthew McConaughey at that scene in the end of Interstellar where I'm just like floating around and I'm looking for like the little pieces that I need here and there, like, oh, pro-life bill. Okay, yeah. Oh, CGR bill. Yep. Oh, there's the healthcare. Oh, broadband expansion. And at this point, like, Memorial Day is going to get here and I'm probably going to look at myself in the mirror and ask where the last 5 months went.
Honestly, the way you used to describe it, I'm excited and happy that, you were able to find so many bills that we have passed. I mean, that's an accomplishment, right? For us to have done as much as we have.
Yeah, especially in a session where so many people were talking about, like, are they going to be able to get anything done? The was very different from previous sessions, but also as we look back now, I mean, yeah, you're just talking about it, the monumental number of bills that we've been able to get passed. Many of those priority issues for Texans who are focused on education, figuring out how their kids are going to continue to learn, focusing on expanding access to healthcare, right? We had that big HB4 by For Price that was passed in conjunction with Trent Ashby's HB5, bringing the broadband expansion component into it. So,
and HB4 is telemedicine. We've expanded services for telemedicine. So, I mean, this healthcare access is growing within our state, and that's and a remarkable thing, but something that I don't think that we probably would have done so much on if it weren't for COVID-19 bringing it to the forefront of our priorities and understanding that, yes, we live in the 21st century and these are basic components of everyday life for many of us, but, it took something to propel us in that direction. And I think that's a good thing, but yeah, I mean, we didn't know what to expect going into the session, and here we are 120 days into it, and there's a lot that has taken place between now and then, and we've seen even the outside world beyond this building opening up, and things are kind of getting back to normal.
Yeah, even on the House floor, it pretty much seems like pre-COVID activity down there. Members are moving around. I don't see much of the plexiglass anymore. They removed the mask mandate. CDC even said today, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. So I think it seems like it's come at a crucial time when the members really need to be just go as much as possible on all these bills. I guess looking back on this session, obviously the amount of work and the success we've brought on bills is going to set the tone going forward. But are there any, side things that have happened or that you've watched this session that you think will stick with you? I mean, every session has a few events that kind of take place that really brand what the 87th session was like for people beyond the COVID restrictions and things like that. Are there any other memorable moments?
I mean, I don't know if it's a moment that comes to mind immediately. It's an overarching experience that we have had having a new speaker sitting on the dais this session. It's very interesting to see how Speaker Phelan has really grown in the role that he took up and that his colleagues elected him to do. He has been working very hard to, get members to work together on the House floor on a lot of these bills. It was great to see him identifying issues that I think speak to all Texans, like criminal justice reform and healthcare accessibility and things like that. He also personality-wise brings a little bit of entertainment to it too. I mean, he is a very formal gentleman while running the chamber, but he makes light of himself. He makes light of the other members, and that's kind of refreshing to see out of a leader.
Yeah, his UT roots kind of come out every now and again.
They sure do. Yeah. You can't take the Texas out of the boy.
Or the East Texas for that matter. I have never heard so much of an East Texas drawl throughout session. One person who's definitely got to be loving the speaker is whoever makes those gavels down there.
Yeah, tell me about it.
What 3, 4? How many have we broken at this point?
Last week was 3, I think. Yeah, and apparently he has a drawer full of them sitting right next to the dais, so he's prepared.
There's some squad goals for you. A drawer full of gavels, right? You have made it in life. I think for me, watching a few of these members lay out some tough bills, this session, either in committee or on the House floor. Specifically, Representative James White, friend of the podcast, go check out that episode. Him going through that George Floyd and the 2A hearing that went in 3-4 a.m. I can't even remember at this point. But all of the tensions and the emotions that came with the George Floyd Act and discussing those issues, those very important issues, having Miss T up on the dais, even on the panel, sitting there listening to witnesses, him showing how to engage witnesses and acknowledge that these are Texans who are very passionate about the issue, and whether you're for or against the particular issue, having that respect, that compassion, that statesman-like leadership is something that sticks with me. And it's something that, I'll continue to look for as we go into sessions, watching how chairmen choose to run their meetings and things like that. Also, Matt Schaefer, round of applause for how he managed himself on the permitless carry bill, Firearm Carry Act. These bills have so many names. But in watching how he took on this issue, which we've been talking about a long time down here, and managed to carry it through and really get a lot of members on board, bipartisan support. Terry Canales giving a fiery support speech at the end there. That's another one of those moments that I think is going to last with me for at least until the next session, when I'm tired and I can't remember what day or week or month or year it is again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and speaking of Miss T, she carried a piece of legislation in response to some alleged misconduct of lobbyists in the building, and her personal privilege speech and the work that she's put into this issue over the past, decades of service she has been in this building was incredible. But to see that support from our speaker as well, who gave his own personal privilege speech in response to those allegations as soon as they came out the next time they were on the House floor, it just showed that leadership was prepared to step up and get involved from the get-go on a number of issues. And like we talked about earlier, with Winter Storm Uri, the same thing happened. Chairman Patty and Chairman Goldman, the State Affairs and Energy Resources Committees, they got together and had these marathon-long hearings to get to the bottom of what happened and to figure out how we can prevent that from ever occurring again.
Yeah, we know State Affairs already has some pretty lengthy hearings, but this session, I would love to see if someone does the work to find out, which committee had the longest hours in terms of, hearing and things like that. They had several in a row that went 12 plus, 14 plus.
It would be interesting to compare from previous sessions and just get down to the bottom of how long were they really here in comparison. It's for those members, it is an investment of their time and energy that we are so grateful for.
Yeah, and imagine yourself being in that hot seat and, having to be up here. They already did it this week, staying up until, what was it, 1:30, 2 a.m., and turn around, seeing members back here at 8 a.m. ready to go for committee hearings and things like that.
Yep.
It's really interesting to talk about what happens down here, because there's so much that the public doesn't see. It's a very transparent process. You can live stream committee hearings. You can come down and testify. We have the House public comment portal, completely new.
It's a great addition that we delivered to the public, and I hope it's something that sticks around.
Yeah, I agree with you. From the chairman that I've talked to on the podcast, they all agree that it's a great resource for Texans to be able to engage. And all those comments become part of the public record as well, attached to those bills. So if you want to know how Texans really feel about an issue, you can go and do the research. There's plenty of studies out there. So as we get ready to wrap up here, what are we looking at now at this point, besides trying to get some sleep after deadline night?
That would be nice. That would be nice.
We're all looking forward to that. But beyond that, for the rest of the session, heading to sine die, as we all know it around here, the end of the 140-day session, what are we looking for this session and beyond?
Look, I mean, getting House bills out of the House is a huge hurdle, but they still have a long road ahead on the Senate side to get to the governor's desk. And so we'll be monitoring those bills that are making their way through the process on the other side of the chamber, or other side of the building in the other chamber. And, beyond that, once we get out of session, the interim is dedicated to studying issues that are current and taking place during that time, but also looking back and looking ahead. And so a lot of our members will be focused on continuing to make good policy for Texas, even over the course of the next 16 months until we are back in another 140-day session.
Right. And some of those interim charges are based off of bills that are passed this session, correct? So if you're trying to gauge what the interim charges might look like, looking at what we passed this session is definitely a good starting point. Also, I'm going to say it, the phrase we're not supposed to utter, but we... It appears that we have a special session coming as well on redistricting. According to Chairman Hunter, it looks like we are going to have to wait for that census data. So for those who don't understand special and kind of how all that works, can you give a quick rundown of, from the governor calling it to, intent and purpose, very strictly?
Sure. So, the governor would issue a proclamation for a special session of the legislature to be called. It can last for up to 30 days. And he selects what issues are on the call. And so a few sessions ago, we came back and we did a session in July that had about 25 things on the call, I believe. This time we would be looking at a far more pared down call because we have one big task to complete, which is to draw districts for all various levels of government. And so that's a big lift for our members to do. One that they can certainly do within 30 days. I'm pretty confident of that. But, at this point, timeline-wise, we've got this data, but, the expectation is we'll be back here in late fall.
And we're thrilled about it, right? Well, especially since we'll get some sleep. You'll get some time with baby Henry.
Yes, my 10-month-old. I'm ready to spend a little bit of quality time with him after this week, especially.
Yeah, well, and now that things are opening up, you guys can go out, have a fun, first birthday celebration.
Would be nice. We'll see what happens.
There you go. Well, we'll be looking forward to the caucus getting involved as well. We are not going to be just sitting around during the interim. We got big plans to go visit some districts, hang out with some members, host some public events and things like that.
Yep.
Can you give a little teaser on any of that?
I don't feel like we have it all fleshed out, but we've got a pretty exciting concept anyways to start touring the state and visiting with members as they're hitting the campaign trail. The saying that you like to throw out there all the time is you're never not campaigning. You're always working on that. But ultimately, when we're out of session and they go back home, and it's going to depend on redistricting too, and what the filing schedules look like and things like that. But, our members are going to have to work really hard to get reelected. And that's part of the gig they signed up for in the first place. But we're going to provide them with as much support as we possibly can over the course of the next interim, whether it's policy making or helping them out in their races.
Yeah, and the podcast will continue. There'll be possibly some barbecue and tacos in the future.
Ready. My tummy is so ready for that.
Yeah. Let's get out of this Austin slump. We need to get around to some other Texas barbecue joints. We're gonna show Netflix what's really what, and TripAdvisor. Oh my gosh, TripAdvisor.
I saw that. Not good.
Yeah.
I don't know who did that poll. It was poorly done.
I feel like TripAdvisor was looking for some attention, and they were just looking like about 4 or 5 states real hard with that map.
How can you put Oklahoma on the map and not Texas?
Or you put New Orleans for barbecue when I have never heard of Louisiana style barbecue in my life.
Valid point.
You know what? Who can answer this for us? Jay Dean. If we bring Jay Dean on that, he can tell us for sure.
They have a Cajun barbecue that they have put together.
Oh, that sounds like an abomination. Cajun barbecue does not sound like it makes sense.
You know, though, I mean, like, they have Viet Cajun crawfish down in Houston, and that's supposed to be delicious. You never know.
I mean, but crawfish is already kind of a Cajun thing to begin with,
it's like
right?
Vietnamese Cajun. I mean, I'm just saying there's a lot of fusion that's taking place in our world now, and give it a shot.
Yeah, Cajun barbecue. I feel like Twitter is going to really let us know how they feel.
I don't know why I even said that, frankly. I want to take it back.
Nope, Twitter's not going to let you either. You're going to be the Cajun barbecue lady. What is happening at that caucus? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, fortunately, you don't have to give any of the plugs or things like that unless you want to take my job and, plug the caucus and all the fun social medias and all those things.
I think I will go back behind the scenes after my Cajun barbecue comment. So.
Yeah, well, we're gonna bring you back for sure because we're gonna have a lot of fun and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about for our members and going forward. So. If you want to know what makes all this possible, it's this lady right here. She works very hard, very tirelessly, or maybe I don't know that you're tireless. I'm pretty sure you're tired. Of all of our crap, especially me and Chris, because we're children, driving you nuts all the time. But
I can manage. I have a little boy at home. It's fine.
You have one 10-month-old little boy, and then you have your husband. Which. Two different management styles. Thank you for taking time to do this. And thank you for all you've done for the caucus and the dinner tonight we're going to have for staffers. It is kind of a family down here, since you don't get to see your own that much.
I know, it really is. I mean, being cooped up in this building for sometimes 15 hours, however long days, we do bond and spend a considerable amount of time together that you feel like a family after a while. And so I'm really looking forward to it. A lot of our staff and members really haven't gotten out and experienced the session we normally do. And so it's just enjoyable to even break bread together right now.
Yeah, well, for now, we're going to just try and stay awake past midnight, get home, get some sleep, and get ready for, Senate deadlines on the 25th, sine dies on Memorial Day, May 31st, and after that, we'll have to see where all the chips fell, let people know what we got done and what we're going to be working on in the meantime so we can continue to make Texas great, strong, keep the businesses coming here. Maybe we'll go to 8th largest economy over the process.
That's an optimistic goal.
Look, I
not
mean,
one that I don't think I think our governor would take that challenge on. Frankly.
Yeah. I mean, if we can keep winning those economy cups or whatever, the best place for businesses, all of that stuff. I mean, it bodes well for Texas, especially with the comptroller's report and looking how Texas really fared during the pandemic. It was such a horrifying prospect that we were going to have as much as $5 billion shortfall in the budget, and now with his updated revenue estimate, we're sitting at even with a budget that is forecast well below that. So being smart, fiscally responsive,
it's very promising.
That's good stuff. All right, well, let's go get ready to feed some staffers and some members.
I'm ready.
Good stuff. All right, thank you to Jordan for joining us. Thank you to you for tuning in. Obviously, it's a crazy time down here. Deadline night, like we talked about this episode. A lot of things coming down the pike. But if you want to learn more about the bills that we talked about on this episode and the things that have passed in the House, we put together a bunch of articles on our website. You can find those TexasHouseCaucus.com. This is a great way for you to go back and look at where we've landed on some of these big priority issues, be it election integrity, pro-life, 2A, pro-business, healthcare, education, broadband expansion. There's so much that we've done. CJR bail reform. The House has really stepped up, and our members have done a great job making sure that they are working on issues that are important to all Texans. So if you want to find those articles, again, you can go to TexasHouseCaucus.com. Make sure you're following the caucus on our social media channels. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TXGOP Caucus. I thank you guys again for tuning in. We've got plenty more. We're going to try and bring members in. Obviously, their schedules are very hectic right now, spending long hours on the floor debating these things. And they are still going to have more to go as we get ready for the Senate deadline on the 25th, sine die on the 31st. So make sure you stay tuned, stay subscribed to this podcast, or follow us on social. And again, hit us up on TexasHouseCaucus.com. All right, we'll see y'all next time.